October. And Mr. Clerk, want to open the meeting there?
Yes, sir. Item number 1.
Item number 1, please. And I will not be joined by my colleagues at this time, so it's a committee of 1.
Okay. Item number 1 is the Department of Aging report relative to the Senior Service Closeout Contract Amendments, Health Insurance Counseling and Advocacy Program, and Senior Farmers Market Vouchers for fiscal year 2009-2010.
No, James.
James Dunn, Department of Aging. This transmittal is a routine request from the department to execute its year-end redistributions to cover agencies that overserved with program savings from other areas. Due to the nature of our grant funds, they cannot be rolled over, and any unused funds must be returned to the state. So this is our opportunity to be able to address our needs. It also includes a request to execute amendment number 2 of the California Department of Aging for an additional $26,000 in health insurance advocacy. It further includes a request to draw down $35,000 for the lease payment for the
CEO recommend approval?
I believe so.
Good, okay, we're going to approve it. And also, do you have a questionnaire you give to your the variety of people who use your facilities to get input from them? And if you don't, create one, James, just to get a track on how people think and feel in these times.
Sure. Actually, all of our agencies provide seniors the opportunity to submit feedback, but we'll develop a standardized one specifically for that.
Super. Thanks a lot, James. Recommend approval. Next item, please.
Item number 2 is a communication from the Mayor's Office relative to the appointment of Ms. Alicia Lara to the Commission for Community and Family Services for the term ending June 30, 2014.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you very much. Tell me a little about Alicia Lara.
Well, I'm a resident, obviously born and raised actually in Los Angeles, live in your district, fortunate enough to live in your district. I've been working on poverty issues as a member of the staff of United Way and as a volunteer through various activities for many years, and I'm very honored to have been nominated and commit myself to this commission and to doing the best possible job I can.
I know you will. Here's the whole things in life now as partnerships and relationships. Coming from the United Way, having that background and the rest of the background in your work experience will allow you to try to make partners and somehow, and to elevate what sometimes gets stuck in the City Hall challenge, to find new partners and new relationships to focus on children, youth, and families, and also many of the things that affect youth. And others are sometimes in a bifurcated role when they're all mixed together. So you're a great addition to the commission, and I thank you for your service to Los Angeles. And this will go forth with. What is this schedule for council?
Next week, sir.
Next week. Okay, good. Thank you so much.
Look forward to seeing you then.
Okay, good to see you. Everything good on Arden Boulevard?
Yes, there it is.
All right. See you. Next item.
Item number 3 is a communication from the Mayor's Office relative to the appointment of Ms. Mary Garcia to the Commission for Community and Family Services for the term ending June 30, 2012.
Tell me a little about Mary Garcia.
Well, I've been working in community for about 26 years. Currently serve on the Midtown North Hollywood Neighborhood Council as president. I've worked with boards and committees ranging from Valley Community Clinic to the Japanese Garden to other organizations that help build community in the NoHo Arts District. And I'm looking forward to this commission. I think that I can bring some other facet to this organization that might help it to blossom in a different way.
Mary, you're so well said. I know your background and your advocacy, and again, from a neighborhood standpoint, having that perspective. So I look forward to your service to the city, and Mayor Villaraigosa made 2 excellent choices for this commission. So we're going to recommend approval. And Mr. Clerk, when is this scheduled for council?
Next week, sir.
Next week, same time, same time. Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you both. Have a good day. Next item.
Item number 4 is a motion by Council Members Han and Council Members Labonge relative to the feasibility of dedicating the Watchtowers admission ticket proceeds to a reactivated Watchtowers Restoration, Maintenance, and Preservation Trust Fund or the Cultural Affairs Trust Fund. This item was also referred to the Budget and Finance Committee.
Great. Is everyone here for item number 4 who's supposed to be here? Do we know, Lisa? Is everybody here for item number 4? Do we have someone from Ms. Han's office?
I see.
We're going to set this on the table.
Olga.
I know, but we don't see Ms. Han's office. That's what I asked for. Call Ms. Han's office. We'll hold this on the table. Next item.
Item number 5 is a motion by Council Members Han and Council Member Smith relative to the request for the City Attorney, together with the CLA, to prepare and present an ordinance that amends the Los Angeles Municipal Code to specifically adopt the Los Angeles County Health Code, which specifies regulation for body art establishments and authorize the county to regulate body art establishments within the city.
Thank you very much. Do we have any report from the city attorney or city legislative analyst's office on this?
No.
There's no report on file at this time. I think we're going to come back with one. I don't know if anyone from the city attorney's office is present to speak on it.
So body art, is that a new word for tattoo?
Yes.
Okay, but tattoos are regulated by the police commission, right? And this issue, so I want to see what the motivation. Let's hold this for Ms. Han's deputy, since that's right on there too. We're going to hold item number 5. 6, please.
Item number 6 is a motion by Council Members Labonge and Council Members Garcia relative to the request for the City Attorney, together with the Department of Recreation and Parks, to report to the Arts, Parks, Health, and Aging Committee on the status of the joint use agreement with the Los Angeles Unified School District for the Vine Street Elementary School Community School Parks Program.
Great, thank you very much. And I know, is Mary Rodriguez here? Yes. Mary, you could join the table, give us input from the field. Please, introduce yourself and for the record.
Councilmember Joel Alvarez, Rec and Parks, Real Estate and Asset Management. I'm here to report on the status of the joint use agreement between the city and Los Angeles Unified School District regarding the Vine Elementary School project, shared use of the play area that's to be developed. I want to express that the department continues to fully support the project, including the availability of QUEMBI funds. There has been a very nice conceptual plan prepared, and the QUEMBI funds are available as soon as we execute the joint use agreement. We are in communication with LAUSD and waiting for the draft of the joint use agreement so that we can move that forward through our board. There are a couple issues that came up regarding environmental assessment. We're waiting to hear some findings from LAUSD on those studies that have been performed. And upon reviewing the findings, we will prepare the agreement and move it forward for approval.
Great. We don't have a representative of LA Unified here yet.
I don't believe so.
Yeah. Okay. Ms. Rodriguez, would you give us a report from the field?
Well, the reason that we wanted to...
Identify yourself for the
Mary
record.
Rodriguez, Field Deputy for Councilman Labonge, Education Deputy. We want to move this forward because we do have a unique and wonderful opportunity at Vine Street Elementary because the school district has moved forward with their plans, which is to create a community school park, and now we would like for Recreation and Park to work with them to do our joint use, which is the middle section of the park. So we would like for all of it to be under construction at the same time. That would be the best scenario.
Good. All right. And Carrie Sunkin from the People for Parks. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Councilman? Thanks so much for helping us keep this project moving forward. Representing the nonprofit, we've had great support from the city and the school district. As you all know, the school district owns the property, but we're working through a couple of very creative partnerships. The nonprofit has been looking for funding to help with the operations and maintenance because we know in this current budget situation that's been really difficult for Rec and Parks, and so it's kind of a unique approach to joint use.
Right.
And what's also unique is that we've had the school district contribute $500,000 for improvements to this project, and they're moving forward on their piece of it, because the kids will use it during the school day, a nice green, grassy, multi-purpose field with trees and shade on what is now 100% asphalt play yard in a part of your district, Hollywood, that is very underserved in terms of parks in this
Right.
area. There's less than 0.2 acres of open space for 1,000 residents, and the city standard is 4 acres per 1,000 residents of park space. So
Right.
we know it's a high-need area. We appreciate the collaboration with the departments. I have some information from the school district. As Mary said, they've been aggressive with us and pushing it forward, and there's a timeline for construction to start this spring and open the park this summer. And so we're glad that the city is there and we can get some of these agreements quickly, and so we will help kind of facilitate that communication.
Great, Ms. Sunken, is there anything we need to do right now?
You know, it would be nice if maybe the Parks Department could just communicate back with Ms. Lasso. There was this great period where we were meeting.
All right, we're together now. So this council action, if I could just ask for this action on this to communicate that, when's the last time we had a full discussion with LA Unified on this? Like 60 days ago, 90 days ago?
I can't speak to that as far as a specific date, because it was my superintendent, Mike Scholl, who's attended most of the construction meetings regarding this project.
Very good. But it hasn't been last week. So we need to reunite our vows for issues such as joint use. And why don't we do that and hold this on the table for 30 days to just keep the fires going? And then come back for a full report. We'll ask that LA Unified be here and try to make sure everybody's ready to go forward.
Excellent.
Because spring is right around the corner,
That sounds good.
even though we just fell into fall. No. Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll hold this for 30 days, Mr. Clerk. Okay. Next item.
Next item is a motion by Council Members Cardenas and Council Member Krikorian relative to the request for the Department of Recreation and Parks to report to the Arts, Parks, Health and Aging Committee on the status of the joint use agreement citywide and within the Northeast San Fernando Valley and current programs offered at LAUSD sites in each council district.
Good morning. Why don't we start with staff?
Joel Alvarez, Rec and Parks. Here to report on the status of joint use citywide. The Department of Recreation and Parks first began its shared use relationship with the Los Angeles Unified School District in 1967 with the execution of a contract between the city and LAUSD for the construction and operation of a pool at Venice High School. Since then, the city has established a shared use relationship with the LAUSD at over 75 school sites and park sites. Although the shared use of park and school sites goes back to the 1960s and 70s, the premise of joint use really took off in the 1990s. Over the years, the REP and LAUSD have officially executed over 50 agreements at the administrative level, such as joint use agreements, license agreements, use agreements, and facility use permits. It has also been commonplace for park directors and school principals to make arrangements on their own for the temporary or ongoing reciprocal use of certain park and school sites. Currently, we have several joint use agreements that are in process. The Helen Bernstein High School Joint Use Agreement was just approved by the Board of Recreation and Park Commissioners in September 2010. We're currently working with the City Attorney and LAUSD legal staff on the approval of the Robert F. Kennedy Inspiration Memorial Park Use Agreement. We also have agreements pending at Green Meadows Recreation Center and South Region High School number 12, South Region High School number 15 at Angels Gate Park, the Vine Elementary School Joint Use Agreement that was just mentioned earlier, and we're also working on a master aquatics agreements that will cover all pools citywide.
Is there someone in Recreation and Parks who's Mr., Mrs., Ms., joint use?
That would be me.
Good.
I'm to be the liaison between the...
So you're Mr. Okay.
Mr., yes.
All right, good. Well, that's good, because this is an opportunity in this very difficult time. And I know it's tough, because entities are entities. But to find common ground and to work together, because it's all the people's money. More recently, we got complaints from community that a middle school was able to get new fields, and now all of a sudden on Saturday and Sunday, there's activity there. But this is something that we got to expect in the future. We just got to make sure that it's balanced in the sense of what the neighborhood is, that there's all the additional activity, that the parking challenges are met and things of this nature here. So you're a very important person to help us in this effort here. Now I'm going to call on one of the fine deputies in the City Hall, if you would make a report for Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you, Councilmember Labange, Eduardo Soriano Hewitt with Councilman Tony Carter's office. I'd like to thank the committee for hearing this motion today, and we ask that you support the motion. Councilmember Cardenas wants to identify ways in which he can expand recreational opportunities within the Northeast San Fernando Valley. We believe that this motion gives us the opportunity to have a clear understanding of what's required to negotiate joint use agreements for the schools that are in our district. Most importantly, we've had briefings from both Joel Alvarez in the Rec and Parks Department, and also had conversations with Chris Espinoza in the Mayor's office about creating an offensive strategy where we would identify some of the administrative challenges on our side and also on the school district side in the event that we require additional support from the school board in terms of identifying resources or programming for schools in our district. So we are thankful, and we hope that this report, when it comes out in 30, 60, 90 days, gives all the council offices a baseline.
All right, let me ask a question. Would we feel that that in 30 days or so we schedule something in council, that we get LA Unified there, that we could all discuss it? We're going to work the Vine Street issue, which was previous, separately, because that's on the edge to get moving forward. But I think a general discussion within the next 45 days of representatives of LA Unified and the council to know how valued this issue is, because this is a very good motion your boss put together.
Thank you.
So you think you'd be ready to have a general, deep discussion on this in council?
In 45 days, yes.
Yeah, good, okay. So we're going to schedule this for council within 45 days or less.
Thank you, Councilman, because we also believe, one last thing, is that this report will light the flame that will increase the council support and strategy for negotiating these agreements. So we'd like to thank the department for their work.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Okay, I see a lot of people from number 9. Guaranteed they're not outside having a smoke, but keep them out there. Let them keep talking. They're not outside having a guarantee on that one. Let's just see here. The two library issues that we have to wait for after 9:30, do we have to wait till 9:30 for that? All right.
Yes, and they're working on something.
Okay.
Why don't you do number 8?
Okay, is Ms. Hahn's deputy here? Let's take up number 4 again.
Okay, item number 4 is a motion by Council Members Sahan and Council Members Labange relative to the feasibility of dedicating Watts Towers admission ticket proceeds to reactivated Watts Towers Restoration, Maintenance and Preservation Trust Fund or the Cultural Affairs Trust Fund. This item is also referred to the Budget and Finance Committee.
Good morning, Councilmember Labange. Thank you for hearing this motion. And this motion actually came from...
For the record, state your name and
position. For the record, Jennifer Rivera with Councilmember Hahn's office.
Thank you very much.
And this motion actually came from our community asking during the budget, this last budget fiscal year, where there were many cuts at the Watts Towers. And there is actually precedent in our district with Warner Grand, and those ticket sales actually stay at the Warner Grand. And so we'd like to now start the same process for the Watts Towers.
So what you're saying is that, and I asked the General Manager of Cultural Affairs to come forward on this, whatever ticket revenues would be made at the venue, the art venue.
Correct. We'd like to keep it at that location to help with programming and staffing.
Correct. And what do you estimate it will be a year?
We did an analysis over the last 5 or 6 years, and it's about $16,000 a year. It's not a huge amount, but obviously in today's climate, any little infusion helps. So we would dedicate it for programs at the Watts Towers themselves, and that could be anything from the docents that do the tours to doing some extra marketing, signage, that kind of thing.
What is what are the costs to collect it?
It's $7 for adults and $3 for children, for seniors, and I think children up to 12 or something are free.
But what does it cost to collect it, the person at the counter?
Oh, well, it's done by the Arts Center staff, so these are full-time people, it's not standalone people, so...
It's within their job description to be able to do that.
Correct.
It's a simple... want to walk it. Now, this doesn't preclude for anybody from walking down 107th Street, or what is it, 107th Street?
Yes.
It doesn't preclude anybody from walking down the street and looking in.
No, absolutely not. This is for a guided tour. We do employ docents from the community that are trained to, talk about Simon Rodia and,
What do you think Simon would think about this?
I'm sorry?
What would Simon think about this if he was still here?
I think that Simon probably wouldn't want the fence around the towers in the first place, and so we just got done, UCLA just did a 3-day conference on the towers that actually attracted scholars from as far away as Rome and Genoa and New York and Berkeley. And so we had scholars, we had community leaders, we had artists, and, he was a pretty much of a loner, Simon Rodia, so it's kind of hard to predict how he would have... Yeah.
What is planned for behind where the railroad right-of-way was? There's a little park there? It's there? Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm sorry.
There's been talk of a cultural crescent for many, many years, and the plans have stalled because of lack of funding and lack of, ability to carry them out. And so it goes up and down, And
I think the big thing, too, and every time I've been there, is that the accessibility even by the street, it's a street that is not a through street, and then it's a very difficult turn where you turn around in people's driveways, which sometimes makes people a little concerned. So trying to get what would be a hammerhead at the end of the street should be a very big priority, and I'll help work with the councilman of the 15th District on that, to look at that aspect of it. But this here, the CAO have any problem with this at all, or city attorney? This report, do we know? On this item, here's the CAO. Thank you so much.
Terry Sauer with the CAO's office. We'll work with the department and the council office and have a report before it goes to Budget and Finance Committee. We just need to make sure that this won't impact the revenue stream or create a larger hole in the department's budget. But we will work with the department and the council office.
But you won't take the $14,000 if they make the $14,000, will you?
Again, without having really looked at the motion, we just need to determine it's not already counted in the department's revenue stream, and that would be our concern.
My understanding is that money goes into the general fund; it doesn't come back to the department. So, in terms of that concern,
it may have other budgetary impacts. So again, I see that it's been referred to Budget and Finance. We'll work with the department and the council office.
We support this as an opportunity, to look at that. And then let's move forward in any way possible. Anything we can do to help these wonderful towers that have such great history is real important. And I would hope, Ms. Rivera, if you could keep us posted on the outcome of the UCLA study and report, that maybe Ms. Hahn could make a presentation to this committee. And would you tell Ms. Hahn that as chair of this committee, I'll have a meeting at the Watts Towers if it brings extra attention to the challenges that it faces as we focus on these issues.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're sending this from this committee to Budget and Finance to Council eventually.
Correct, and we will report back, and again, we will work with the council office and the department.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item.
Mr. Chair, you want item number 5? Or?
Yes.
Item number 5 is a motion by Council Members Han and Council Member Smith relative to the request for the city attorney together with the chief legislative analyst to prepare and present an ordinance that amends the Los Angeles Municipal Code to specifically adopt Los Angeles County Health Code, which specifies regulation for body art establishments and authorize the county to regulate body art establishments within the city.
Okay, who's going to report on this? Ms. Rivera, you're the representative from Ms. Hahn's office.
Thank you again, Jennifer Rivera for Councilmember Han's office. We'd actually like to request if this could be continued towards the next meeting because our LAPD officer who'd like to report on this matter was not able to be here this morning.
Able to come. What's the focus of this item?
LAPD came to us that there have been concerns with our tattoo parlors.
Right.
Where they cannot go in and actually enforce the health code because we have not adopted a piece of the county code in our admin code.
Since 1972, whenever the city stopped its health department or whatever it was, and the county took over, this specific one was never adopted.
Since then, there have been some amendments to the county code, and so we have not actually amended our code to comply.
Good, okay, well, thank you. So we'll continue this 30 days.
Great.
And hopefully it's, check with Ms. Schechter, who you know, to schedule this appropriately when the availability of the police officer.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next item.
Item number 8 is an item that was continued from May 11, 2010. It's a motion by Council Members Alarcon and Rosendahl relative to instructing the Department of Recreation and Parks to explore additional ways to honor our veterans, such as special rates for veterans who use the city's golf courses on Veterans Day.
Okay, Mr. Ward, introduce yourself for the record.
Councilman LaBonge, I'm James Ward, golf manager for Recreation and Parks. Recently, we've looked into this situation, and we're prepared to offer a discount on this Veterans Day. This was continued from, I believe, a request for the 4th of July previously. But looking at the revenue stream, that we will be able to offer a discount of what we would be our normal senior rate during the week. That's already a pre-scheduled rate that is in our computer system, and we'll be able to offer it on 11/11 Veterans Day. The difficulty is going to be in evidence of past military service and requesting some type of proof of ID for the golfers that will present themselves as veterans, because we don't know of any real document that is given by the government except for discharge notices that they're past veterans.
How are you going to handle that, though?
It's going to be word of mouth, and we're going to basically just let people, if they offer, we'll give it to them.
And then when they meet their maker, if they didn't tell the truth, they'll meet their DI.
Right. But it is one.
Drill instructor for those who were.
Yeah. It is, we are a special fund now. We do really count on the revenue, and these are holiday rates, all of our holidays.
Presently, right now, on Monday through Thursday, what is the rate?
Currently, the rate for 18 holes of golf?
Yes.
Our golf courses right now are, Monday through Thursday are $34.
And how many hours does it take to usually play golf?
4 to 5.
4 to 5, so like $7 an hour?
We're going to have an $18 discount on Veterans Day for the 18-hole golf courses for veterans.
So to do that, that's very good. Now, Mr. Ward, I'm going to ask you a question. On the 11th day of the 11th month, at the 11th, very good back there. Who said that?
The 11th.
Good job. Are you a librarian? Air Force. Okay, you got that. What's significant about that, James?
I could not answer.
That's the armistice for the World War I, which ended the war, and that's where they started it all. Is that correct, Mr. Librarian in the back there? Very good. Well, you heard the same thing, too. That's good there.
I'll take that word for true fact.
No. So I think it's very special. Yeah. I'd only ask, too, that maybe that you make sure that the flag, if possible, and wherever you can, and each one of your facilities should have a flag.
Yeah, all 13 of them do.
Sergeant, where's our flag in here? We got the city flag. We don't got the American flag. Did somebody get that? Someone borrowed. We're going to find it. Let's get flags in here, because I think it's important to remember those who serve us and continue to serve us. at this day. And I will say to anybody, if anybody has any time on Veterans Day, and if you're not golfing, go to Forest Lawn or another memorial park that has a program. And the best thing at these parks is during the ceremony, they usually have a high school band or a small band of volunteers, and they play every theme song, every flight song from the Air Force to the Navy, Marines. And at that time, you see they stand up. You will stand up when it's up and away as Air Force, the Air Force fight song. And it's amazing how you see our fellow citizens of who serve our country get the recognition on that day. So, Mr. Ward, they let this know we got to get the council right away. When is this scheduled?
Next week, sir.
Next week. When next week?
Wednesday.
Wednesday. Good. Okay, you'll be in council.
We'll be there, yeah. Thursday.
Okay, and also, would you have a one sheet for every council member on your rates?
I do.
Okay, I mean, make that available next Wednesday.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Say hello to your father.
All right.
Okay, thank you very much. His father was a great recreation man as well. Okay, now, we're already up to item number 9.
Item number 9 is a motion by Council Members Parks and Perry relative to the request for the city attorney to prepare and present an ordinance to enact a secondhand smoking law effective throughout the city, which would limit public exposure to secondhand smoke in all public areas and common areas where people congregate.
Could I have the CAO or CLA report right here, a representative from Mr. Park's office? Thank you.
Good morning. Purvi Doshi with Councilmember Park's office. Councilmember's actually on his way up here. Do you think we could go through some comments?
We could hold it. We could hold it if you want, or we could do that. Let's take some comments from the public, and he's on his way here.
Great, thank you.
Item number 9. Thank you very much. All right, here we go. Public comment card. The mayor of the city of Calabasas, Barry Groban. You want to go first or last?
I want to go last so I can answer questions.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, good. Barry Berger. Esther Schill, Stephen Gallegos. Sure.
Good morning. My name is Robert Berger, and over the last 7 years...
Did I say Barry?
That's all right.
I'm sorry.
George.
That's okay. You call me George. That's right. Good job, Robert.
Good morning, council member and staff. And over the last 7 years, I was very proud to have worked very closely with the city on its smoke-free beach, smoke-free parks, and most recently, smoke-free outdoor dining ordinances. Today, I sit before you in a different capacity as project director of Project Trust, which is a grant from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and CDC, and a clear recognition that the work is not done in L.A. In terms of protecting its residents and workers and visitors from secondhand smoke. We are here here to reinforce that we're here as a resource in terms of providing technical assistance. I know our office, LA County Tobacco Control and Prevention Program, is working very closely with your office in terms of the smoke-free outdoor dining policy that will be going into effect in March. And we're very happy to be part of this and roll up our sleeves and to work to be a resource to craft whatever direction the city wants to go in terms of staying at the forefront of protecting people.
Very good. Thank you very much. Robert.
My name is Esther Schill. I'm director of an organization called SAFE, which stands for Smoke-Free Air for Everyone. Our mission is encouraging smoke-free environments where people live, work, and play. We've been conducting surveys of residents in the city of Los Angeles, so we have information to share that we think will be helpful, and we would like to be involved as this motion moves through the city's processes.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Good morning, Councilmember. My name is Stephen Gallegos. I'm chair of the Coalition for Tobacco-Free Los Angeles County. Protecting people and children from the dangerous poisons in secondhand smoke is our priority concern. Policies that address these efforts are ones we endeavor to provide support and expertise for. Los Angeles is a recognized leader around the world in providing cleaner air to its citizens through ordinances that restrict exposure to secondhand smoke and reducing access to tobacco by children. We look forward to working together with Councilmember Parks and his staff to provide those protections still needed to reduce unwanted exposure to the dangerous poisons in secondhand smoke.
Thank you very much. We're joined by Councilman Bernard Parks, who's the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee of the Council, but also the maker of this motion. Also, we have one more public comment card on this, is Barry Grobman, who's the mayor of the city of Calabasas. Mr. Grobman, if you wanted to sit there and give us a little...
Sure. Good morning, council members. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Take as much time as you need.
Okay. Probably I'll best spend it in answering questions. But let me just tell you this. Calabasas was probably the first city anywhere to do such a comprehensive secondhand smoke ordinance. So what I really wanted to tell you was it was much easier than it appears. And that's because there is we don't have an ordinance that says you can't smoke. I personally don't believe in telling people what to do. We're not telling people not to smoke. People are free to smoke, although there is no right to smoke. What we did was we wrote a secondhand smoke exposure law, which only regulates harm that you would do in your activity to other people. So we're only regulating exposure, not smoking. That was, I think, a fundamental thing that made our ordinance successful. And we felt, and I feel, that that was essential because unless there is a dispute, and if there is, I'm happy to address it, it is well regarded and recognized that smoking and secondhand smoke is the #1 cause of preventable disease. I've debated this all over everywhere, and I've never found a credible argument by anybody against that argument. So I always prefer to discuss that first. If we can agree that secondhand smoke is such a danger to your health, then I think that there is an obligation to protect people from such risk, much the way we would with regulating driving so that people don't drive drunk, or firing a weapon down in City Hall on a celebration when a bullet will come down and hit somebody. These are pretty fundamental things. Here's a statistic that I got from Dr. Derek Raghavan, who is the chief doctor at the Cleveland Cancer Institute, #2 in the country. When I was debating this publicly, he made the point of telling me that secondhand smoke is worse than direct smoke from the end of a cigarette. And with disbelief, I said, where do you get that from? It doesn't make sense. And based on surgical experiences that they've had, he's available if you need to talk to him, he made the point that a smoker is getting filtered smoke, and he's getting it or she's getting it at a very high temperature. So a smoker learns to breathe shallow to avoid the coughing sensation from the heat off the plume of the cigarette. When it's discharged at the front end of a cigarette, there's no filter, and as it gets into the air outside, it cools down to a cool or room temperature, passing freely into the deepest tissue in the lungs, and they discover that during surgery. That's how you can tell whether somebody's got cancer or an illness from secondhand versus direct smoke. I was very challenging of that. The evidence was very clear. There's also other side benefits to this. Restricting where you do it so that you don't expose people gets rid of the unsightly other unpopular pollution, which is cigarette butts all over the place. Not only is it unsightly and a bad example for kids, but it's also serious for the other issues we face as city managers, and that is the water pollution impact of these little filters or kidneys in the water going right into the storm drain, for which we're all facing liability as cities. I will tell you that when we launched this, we had a hail of attention. I got very disturbing threats from other parts of the country, the Tobacco Belt, Tennessee, and places like that. We survived it. The issue when we pioneered that was that, the sky is falling, as we've all seen in our legislative roles. The sky's always falling. But I'm going to tell you, if you look to the northwest, about 25 miles, you're going to see a very blue sky. The sky never fell in Calabasas. It's bluer than you can imagine. Very clean. So I would advocate the kind of courage that we ourselves experienced when we went forward with this. I never thought that I would be seen as somebody who pioneered this particular ordinance. I didn't think that was what I was really out to do. But it's a very rewarding experience because it puts public health number one. Whatever argument you're hearing, whatever concern you're having, I'd like to address it because I went through it, and it's been a very successful road for us, as it has been with Burbank and Santa Monica and I think West Hollywood soon. And I'm going to tell you, it's happening in Paris, England, Poland, Belgium, because I'm getting calls and we're providing information. Our ordinance is available online, or I can have it sent here. I'm very happy to work with the city attorney, who I know personally, on any drafting issues if it would be of any help.
Just as a question on that subject too, people who use medical marijuana, I believe, are exempted from smoking laws. What does secondhand smoke of marijuana do?
Well, we don't restrict it. Smoke is smoke. And so if you're imposing or if you're...
if you're smoking marijuana, you're restricted as well, whether you're smoking...
doesn't matter what you're smoking, a pipe, a cigar, marijuana. Right. It's the secondhand smoke. We're not telling people not to smoke medical marijuana. We're saying don't do it where people are inhaling.
Just as on Calabasas, is how many people live in Calabasas?
About 30,000. 30,000.
And how many do you think smoke in Calabasas?
We got a nice population of people that smoke. I mean, I can't give you a number, but it's probably consistent with the state and national average.
And how many bars and restaurants do you have?
Plenty, and in that regard, I will tell you, and I think you'll find this to be true here, our restaurants had great concern, the chambers had great concern, now they embrace it because the majority of people want a healthy environment. Our restaurants are full. People come to the city to go to clean restaurants.
I got it, but let me ask a question. If someone does smoke, do they go out in the alley or do they...
No, the ordinance, because it doesn't ban smoking, allows designated areas by our planning director. Right. So a restaurant or commons or any other area can apply for a designated area, and they will get one, and they are all over the city. So you'll have to go to a certain area where the exposure won't occur, and you can smoke freely.
Right.
In a protected area. Just like you see at the LAX, by the way. You'll see glass encased areas, plentiful all over the place. It works.
They have glass encased areas at LAX. You seen that? Inside the building?
Yeah, inside the building. Places smokers can go and smoke.
Generally between the gates and the stores.
Correct.
You walk through.
Okay.
And it works. I mean, we've had no enforcement problem. One of the interesting things we found is that now the average citizen is comfortable asking somebody to not smoke because they're backed by a law. And the average person that we encounter says, I didn't know about it, I'm very sorry, and they put it out. That's about 90%. The other 10 are cited, and usually we rely the store owners to cite them, like a Starbucks or a Commons area. They police it. If they don't, we crack down on them. And there are issues now and then, but it's working, and we're very proud of it.
Very good. Mr. Parks is the maker of the motion.
Yeah, thank you.
Did you ever have a cigarette in your life?
As a young person.
Oh, you did? Oh, good.
Yeah. But I want to thank the mayor because he's the one that educated me about this about 2-3 years ago. And one of the things that I think is important as he talks about the ordinance, and we do have a copy of your ordinance, is that the first indication is everyone says it's ban smoking. And I think the message you gave is that you're not banning smoking, but you certainly are restricting access to smoke by non-smokers. And I think the other issue that has been common is, are we going to eat up all of our resources in the city from the police department going out and citing people about smoking? And I think if you can cover that again, because I think it's just like being on an airplane. In every other place, people point out those who are doing something wrong, as opposed to the police or other city agencies having to get involved.
That's correct. We have virtually no resources from the sheriff dedicated. We haven't had the need to do it. It's done by the stores, by citizens, and our code enforcement inspectors. It has not been a budget item for us. And there are times the sheriff will get involved with the security of, one of Rick Russo's properties, for example, has a problem. He'll notify the sheriff. They'll help out. But we have not had an enforcement problem. We have not had major enforcement issues because people, by and large, are complying.
The other thing is that what's the impact? I would assume it reversed the zoning on new construction that they then have to designate as part of the entitlements.
Yes. Well, what we've done is we've asked, and people have volunteered to get projects approved. We look favorably upon those that are no smoking. So we've had a whole bunch of new projects now where the developer comes forward and says, we're going to do zero smoking here, and we're seeing a lot of that. We've also moved to put this into apartment buildings. That's phased in, but you're not going to be able to smoke in your own apartment. You can do it in your own home because you own the property. But where it's a common ventilation system or a balcony where you're smoking and it's blowing in the wind of somebody trying to enjoy it, let me tell you, it's no different than when, I was a city attorney here, senior assistant for almost a decade, and a district attorney, head of environmental crime. We had problems in people's apartments where they would bring work home. You worked in a lab, a bio lab, a chemical lab, and you brought your work home. You worked on it in the kitchen, and you could have an explosion. LAPD was involved in many of those. How'd you like to know your neighbor is tinkering with something that could blow up your building? It's no different. This one is invisible. But the same stuff is coming through your air conditioner, through your vents, or coming through the window where your kids are, and it's a silent killer, a slow, silent killer. I'm not hysterical. I'm not a hysterical type. I'm relying on the California Medical Association, the AMA, the American Cancer Society. I'm convinced. I will debate anybody that thinks this is not a major health threat.
And then, so the current ordinance doesn't include multifamily residents. That's something will be your next.
No, we have an amendment that we added a year or two later, and it's being phased in. Right now, for example, the building is grandfathering in people that already smoked, and it will try to designate, so you'll be in a certain area of the building if you're a smoker, but ultimately they're going to try to phase it out. By the way, the hotels did it voluntarily. Most of the major hotel chains now have stopped smoking, period. They don't even want their allocated amount, which could be 10%. So they're doing it on their own. It's good policy. Look, I can say what you already know. I know you both know this, Councilman Parks, you in particular, that there's very few things that we would put on our agendas as elected officials that are more important than safety, law enforcement, public safety, and health safety. Everything else, is important, but nothing is more important to the public than their safety, their education, and health.
Let me ask one other thing. Do you also have a restriction as relates to sales of tobacco around schools during certain hours?
Yes, we do. And we've had a crackdown on stores selling cigarettes to minors. In our case, we went pretty far. We required a scarlet letter. If you're selling cigarettes to minors and you're caught, you can pay a fine. You also have to put a sign out when you're caught as part of your punishment indicating you were selling to kids, and we can ban cigarettes for periods of time in that store. And it's worked very effectively. That also, I think, is a no-brainer. In today's world, to be selling cigarettes to children is absurd. It's just counter to everything intuitive. I don't think these are extreme positions. These are going to have health impacts. And by the way, the cost. We all know the city of L.A., one of your biggest costs are your health care plans, like every school district, and those are severely impacted by smokers. So this is really good government policy. I know it's difficult. I know where you're sitting, and I applaud Councilman Parks for being a leader on this, reaching out and trying to find out and being very motivated for all the right reasons.
Let me ask a question. You're at Exposition Park. You love that. You just beat a team. I'm not going to mention the team because the season's long. You're out in the grassy area. You're smoking a cigar. Would that be a violation?
Only if people come by.
Well, yeah, there's 90,000 people coming by.
Yeah, then it would be.
So here's the thing that I think there's I understand a lot of the motivation, but in a bigger metropolis than what a city of 30,000 is, to deal with some of these issues, to deal with the emerging diversity which is in Southern California and some of the habits that people bring from other places. I think it's very important, these health issues that are forefront, public safety, public health, but how do we deal with it? Because I've seen more road rage lately, and I also see some rage on a lot of little stuff that people do on a little less than when the late great Marvin Brady was such a champion for these issues. So I would just want to see if there's some area that we can look at it.
You can designate an area.
Yeah.
I understand that, but I don't know if it's. I mean, I think I don't know how we do that. I know I just worry about the large crowds, because sometimes at large crowds people get excited or get spirited, and then you get confrontation. So,
well, what would you do though if some people, at that event, like to celebrate historically, as they always did, and they fire weapons into the sky. It was a classic thing in the Old West.
I don't think they ever did it in the Coliseum in my years ago. No, I'm thinking
You'd be concerned about that.
No, I'm just thinking of all the people and the passing and how, it's going to go. I think if we focus this in areas, but look at those big venues and think, how do you deal with the big venue issue? Because I know no one smokes in the stands anymore at a game. They may go outside against the fence in some designated area. I'm just thinking as you walk through the park now, that happened.
The one thing I think a city, and I can't recall, just did a secondhand smoke ordinance, but the only thing they excluded was, I think, golf courses. And that was something in the last week or two.
Right, we did that.
And so, but again, I think a lot of this could get vetted during the review process if we get moving. One of the things I think that is important to me is that the county just did a study, and if I read the material correctly, it's something in the neighborhood about 400,000 people in the city of LA smoke out of 4 million. And so when you think about the impact on those who don't smoke or don't wish to be impacted by smoke, the number is significantly larger than the 10% who smoke. And I think the health factor, particularly my district leads the city in the number of smokers. And when we compound that with 60% of the community has no health insurance, and then you compound that with the food and disorders and diseases caused by the lack of healthy choices in food, it just creates a tailspin for a community that many times is unable financially to get access to the proper medical care for that. And then I think also what's important from my standpoint is that in the counties, and I'd ask that we put this in the council file, the county's June 2010 cigarette smoking for LA County local data informed tobacco policy. If we move forward on this motion, I think we've addressed every one of their recommendations as it relates to smart policy. We've already are dealing with such places as restaurants, parks, such areas of that nature close to city buildings. We have an ordinance moving forward to reduce sales during school hours around schools. We also have the issue of having retailers pay a tax in the sense of selling of cigarettes, and we certainly through conditions limit the amount of signage on stores that sell cigarettes so that it's not a draw. So most of this would be the last piece of that puzzle to talk about common spaces. And again, particularly, we hear it constantly in multifamily residences where with the common ventilation system that people are smoking, so you might as well smoke also because they're filling up your apartment. And the medical marijuana issue is even growing more so that people are smoking, and it then not only are you ingesting the smoke, you are maybe getting inebriated at the same time. So these are things that I think allows people to make choice if you want to smoke, but they have no right to cause an illness in someone else.
Do we have any impact too on barbecue, as far as barbecue smoke on that? Does anybody from any of these organizations have any thoughts on that? Because in some cities in the world, they absolutely ban barbecue because of the smoke from that. I'm pro barbecue, so I just wanted to ask that question. I don't want to lose the barbecue vote. I have a Miss Lyons, is it, from the American Cancer Society, who filled the card? Yeah, Mr. Lyons. How do you pronounce your first name? Spencer. Spencer. All right, Mr. Spencer. Excuse me.
Morning, Councilmember LaBonge. Morning, Councilmember Parks. I'm Spencer Lyons from the American Cancer Society. The American Cancer Society is dedicated to eliminating cancer as a major health problem, and as such supports policies that limit exposure to secondhand smoke. I'd just like to reiterate some of the sentiment that was expressed by some of the earlier speakers. We at the American Cancer Society are very interested in being involved in the process as the ordinance is developed and working to ensure that it protects the citizens of Los Angeles from the harmful effects of secondhand smoke. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What I'd like to do as a chair is have this matter approved in here, but ask that the CLA and the CAO report back with all their information, and ask that what Mr. Parks requested in the county report of June 2010 be included in that report. And there's some values that are very important, that we are achieving a healthier community because of these items. And also, just to ask the question, because also, how does this affect nightclub establishments and bars who have some value in this, in smoking, in some people who do smoke who go to these locations? So,
Just as we add the city attorney as part of that CAO, CLA.
add the city attorney. Thank you very much. Thank you. Mayor, thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me. If I can be of any help with the city attorney, I'm happy to help draft. And I want to thank Councilman Parks for his determination. It's a pretty important issue.
All right, that's very good. Now, here's a question for you, Mr. Parks. There's two creeks that start the Los Angeles River. One is named for a city that no one has just been in the news the most time, Bell Creek.
Yeah.
Okay, the other is the Calabasas Creek. When they come together by Canoga Park High, that forms the headworks of the Los Angeles River. So it's good to see we want less cigarette butts in any creek.
You can count on it.
And the creek coming from Calabasas, the water is much cleaner.
Much cleaner.
And pure, because they have no cigarette.
No cigarette, but you got it right there. That's very good. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Well, Mr. Parks, hey, I'm going to do this thing on the library. Stay here. I'm going to ask Mr. Parks to stay here. It's now 9:33. Next item, please.
Next item is item number 10. It's a motion by Council Members LeBlanc.
Hold on, Mr. Clerk. I want to recognize Justin Robinson, who's a former intern in the 4th District. Justin, thanks for coming to City Hall. Okay.
Item number 10 is a motion by Council Members Labange, Garcia, and Parks relative to the citywide parcel tax to fund library services and the request for city attorney with the assistance of the CAO, CLA, and the library department to prepare the necessary resolutions and ballot measure for placement on the March 2011 ballot for the option.
I'm going to take public comment real quick. First, if I could hear from Ms. Flores, Mr. Jonathan Fry. Got it? Okay, and Roy Stone. Public comment, please.
Good morning. My name is Verdell Flores. I'm a librarian with the City of LA, Vice President of the Librarians Guild. And I'm here to speak against this motion as it pertains to the city-wide parcel tax. When the department approached and the Librarians Guild approached council back in June, we were looking for anything and everything we could do to preserve library services. And we saw that, at that time, the best way to go about that. We no longer feel that way. We feel that within the motion, there was mention of changing the charter. And that's what we'd like to throw our support behind. That's what we hope you will throw your support behind, and eventually the council as well. Because if the amount allocated to the library department is improved and greatly increased as part of our city charter, the library department then maintains its position as a core city service, right up there with police and fire. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stone?
That was great. My name is Roy Stone, President of the Librarians Guild. We're very pleased that you have seen the need to fund the libraries properly. And certainly we agree that the one that really secures library funding for future decades would be the charter. And that would be the one we would support, and again, hope that you would support too, because it just removes the political arena from dealing with the library budget. My concern, though, is that there's a very short time to get this all done. And short of that, to not lose anything, at least to be able to remove the requirement of paying the utilities for the department would at least get us on a temporary sound footing again for the department, because we are just not surviving. We're just barely floating during these times. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like the department staff to come forward, and the CAO or the CLA if they want to add to this. Good morning. Basically, if I understand what's before us, it would take Mr. Parks, Chairman of Finance, for this issue. This is something we've all talked about. Mr. Parks, again, brought it to my attention, and we put this together. Right now, there's a certain amount that the charter guarantees that the general fund allot to the library department. What we are asking for, that be raised, which is an allotment. It's not raising the taxes, it's raising what is required by charter of what the general fund would allot to the library department. We're all clear on that?
Terry Sauer, CAO's office. Yes, Mr. LaBonge, we're clear on the intent of the motion.
Right.
The item is in Rules and Elections, and our staff is working with the CAO, or with the CLA and the library department, and we will have a report available tomorrow when this item is calendared in elections.
And Councilman Karen Kalfayan with the CLA's office, the motion also asks to look at options, this being one of the options. So other things that may be considered, include the parcel tax, either in March or in November when the library had proposed it before, and any other options too. So
well, what's bad? But basically, this is a piece of pie. Here's the city budget, and we get this piece now. What we're saying is to give us a bigger piece, right?
If you increase the charter mandated amount, then yes, that's
right.
What would happen.
And I think the people of Los Angeles would like that, right? Especially librarians would like that, right?
Right, and also to consider too that when you increase that charter amount, that's money that comes from the general fund, and that would have an impact not only on libraries but on other
things as well. I got that too. Right. Okay. Can the library department speak?
Chris Morita, library department. As the CLA and CAO have stated, we did meet last week to talk about the different funding options, and their written report hopefully will talk about various funding options. Of course, our personal opinion that we would support the charter, the increase in the charter appropriation. In the motion, it states that, for example, the Rec and Parks gets a 0.0325% charter appropriation. If the library were increased to that level, then we would be fully funded. So that would be our preference, but as the CLA points out, that is an effect to all the other departments.
Right, but you represent the library department. So if this is good for the library department, I think it should be something that we should look at and make us all work harder to figure other challenges that are out there. Would you have anything like that?
I concur with the statements made by my supervisor and also by the CLA that we are preparing a report that we will be presenting tomorrow with different options.
Great. Mr. Parks?
One thing, and I think we should always be aware that under the current system, we have the ability as a city to increase it above the 00175, but often we don't get there. But the other side of it is, even though we give the $75 million to the library, when we start charging for overhead and for utilities, it drops their base of 75 down 30 to $40 million. And that's what we're attempting to look at is, from my standpoint, is two things. One, although we use the Rec and Park as an example, the issue is we also need to look at what some of the incremental costs. So if you move up from 0.0175 to 0.20 or whatever, give us some incremental steps as to what that means on the general fund, because that's money that's coming out of the general fund. The other side of it, we need as an option to look at whether, in talking about the utilities, whether we also need to evaluate in taking the total cap that they pay. Can they pay their salaries and their overhead and not the larger cap costs? which means it's less money coming out of their fund. Those are the kind of options we need. Also, we need an option to look at if we move it up incrementally and say for that within the next, because if this goes on March, it will not become effective probably to, 12, 13 or something?
If the charter one is in March, no, it would be effective almost immediately.
Okay, but the thing is, there would be the election the elections in March, but it would go in effect on the budget 11/12?
No.
Or beyond.
Why not right away?
Well, the thing is, I think it's got to meet
11/12.
with the budget timeline. And so the thing is that it would probably be the 11/12 at the earliest.
Right.
All right. So then, with that case, then whether we look at it and say it moves up an increment on 11/12, and we ask for another increment 12/13, something to where we can look at all of the options we have, because we do have a general fund issue that we can't devastate. But one of the problems I have is that as we go through all of the priorities and we put 70% into police, fire, and all that other, libraries comes out, although we all say it's important, we never quite get around to ensuring they're fully funded. And so we need to increase their base and figure out, do we need to take everything we're taking away from them so they can become operational? And again, I don't believe the parcel tax is viable, because it'd be the first time we did a tax for operational issues, as opposed to dealing with it from structural and concrete and mortar. And as we've seen on the state level, floating a bond for operational issues, you could be bankrupt very quickly, because you could absorb that operational cost almost immediately, or at the next negotiation for a contract. So I think we have to rely on the general fund for operations and use the bond mechanism for building buildings and things that are structural and long-term. And so that's the kind of thing I think we need to balance, to look at all the options that we may come about. Do we charge them less? Do they have to pay the whole cap? Can they pay their overhead and their salaries? Do they pay and they're paying their utilities? If that's going to be the consistent pattern, how do we work on both ends of the equation?
Right, and Councilmember, our report will address all of those, including what's currently in the library's budget, what would it cost to restore funding, the other related costs associated with their budget, and then just one comment on a parcel tax. That wouldn't necessarily be a bond. That would be a tax that would then.
Well, I mean, but I think it's a finite amount of money, and it becomes that you can absorb it very quickly because there's no growth to it. And almost immediately, if you put that parcel tax into their budget, it could be absorbed the first year. And then what do you do if they get a pay increase and that stuff? So I'm looking to where we can look at something that we can do within our own budget, and also make some considerations of what we are asking the library to do. I don't believe we can jump to 0.32 the first year. That's like $60 million or something.
But I think that if the voters vote on it, they may have that.
I think you can do something incrementally, and you can look at ways, because it's our decision what we charge them. And is it reasonable to charge them utilities, overhead, and cap, when I believe there's just two departments we do that to?
The one thing I did want to ask the CAO to look at, have you ever looked at, and let's just say there's 70 Department of Water and Power facilities of land, distribution stations, buildings, offices in the city. Have you ever looked what that would generate if they paid property taxes?
No, I don't. I would have to defer to our revenue group, but no, I don't know that our.
Ask the revenue group, and not to be, I'm pro water and power on that sense there, but if Thomas Edison beat Mulholland and Edison was here instead of Mulholland, they would be paying property taxes. And the dividends that Edison would make would go to their shareholders. The dividends that the people of Los Angeles make go to the city, which then go to pay for parks and libraries and other things. So I truly want to look at that issue to be able to have just a number, Bernard, that would say, okay, let's just say if they did pay taxes, it would be an estimated this, so we could, on paper, not charge libraries, not charge parks for water and power, and use it as that. And I would like to ask you formally to look at that.
Yes, sir. I believe on some issue as it relates to, some of this impacts the transfer and the power transfer, but we'll ask our revenue group to report
But they
back.
don't know how much property the city has there, because in Lone Pine they pay property taxes, in other county they pay property taxes.
We will ask our
Okay.
revenue group to report back.
Thank you very much. So we're going to move this forward to these other committees and have it all come to council to try this discussion, and then we go from there. Thank you all. The next item also relates to the library department. Yeah, another question from Mr.
The report that you're talking about, is it going to be prepared for rules?
It will be rules and elections.
Thank you. The next item is on the next page. Thanks, Bernard. Thanks, Mr. Parks, for joining us this morning. On the issue, right now you're funded for 38 hours.
Right.
Right. Now, and I have no comments on this, but no public cards, and I have talked to the city librarian. But if you have 38 hours, could you spread the hours around and keep the service going? Do you want to speak, Mr. Stone? Where are the cards?
It might be in the special meeting.
Okay, good. The cards are covered. Thanks, Mr. Stone. Stone, join us at the table.
So if I can address that.
Yeah.
Chris Marita, Library Department.
Super.
You know, last year we had, a year ago we had 1,136 position authorities to provide full service. A 6-day service in all our community branches, which was 52 hours a week. 7-day service at Central Library and the 8 regional branches, which was 60 hours a week. We were also open 4 nights a week. Usually we were open 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so that was a 10-hour day. And that required 2 work shifts of staff. One shift worked 9 to 5:30, the other shift worked 11:30 to 8. Now, a year later, we've lost 328 positions, which is nearly 30% of our workforce. So with this huge reduction of staff, we don't have enough staff to cover 6 or 7 days of service. We're down to 5 days of service. And we're basically only open 1 work shift a day. So we're only open 7.5 hours every day. So on Tuesday, so we're open Tuesday through Saturday. On Tuesday and Thursdays, we're open 12:30 to 8, 7.5 hours. And on Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, we're open 10 to 5:30. 7.5 hours. That other half hour, the staff uses to open up the building.
Mr. Chair, just for a point of clarification, are you adjourning the regular meeting and opening?
Well, I was going on this one here, this additional item, but say it again, Ms. Schechter? I know, but I saw it here on item number 11.
Item number 11 is almost identical to item number 12 of the special meeting.
We'll pass on 11, we'll go to the special, call the special meeting, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, it's the Arts, Parks, Health and Aging Committee Special Meeting in Room 1010, City Hall at 9:30 a.m. Item number 12 is a motion by Council Members Labange and Council Members Han relative to directing the Library Department with the assistance of the CAO and CLA to report on the feasibility of restructuring operating hours at the city's community libraries from 5 days a week to 6 days a week by using the current 38 hours a week allotment.
Got it. Okay.
So to provide 6 days of service with existing staff, we would have to shorten the days. You know, right now we're open 7.5 hours each day. So now we would have to shorten the days. It would be maybe 6-hour days or 5-hour days, which it, you know, makes it, it does not help give the public as much time to use our resources. And then additionally, our staff would have to work 6 consecutive days or split shifts. So that would involve this, that would be a meet and confer with the unions or impact bargaining. I don't think any other city department requires their staff to work 6 consecutive days.
Some do, I understand that. I'm just saying, if we really want to try to keep the libraries open 6 days a week, is there a model that works with the 38 hours that has been allotted that could put on a board, figure it out, how could you do it if it's feasible at all? So this is why I wanted to discuss this, because many, many people, more than any other city service, have voiced concerns about the reduction in hours that are open. So let's take public
It's a possible
comment.
model, but we'd only be open like 6 hours or 5 hours a day.
Right.
And, you know, for the public, and here the staff.
Well, I know, but I mean, we'll have to figure that out, but I think we should have this as something to have an option. Let me call Mr. Stone and then Ms. Flores.
I think you'd find just as many complaints. My name is Roy Stone, President of Librarians Guild. I think you'd have just as many complaints, people saying, but you weren't open in the morning. Now I don't have the night here. I don't have the morning there. The problem is we don't have enough staff to really spread unless we did it that way, where there's just not enough people. And so we concentrated the amount of people, management did, in those hours so we can barely get by now. And it's very hard when somebody's on vacation. That sometimes leaves 2 librarians or sometimes 1 librarian and 1 clerk. And there's a lot of branches that are busy. They need it for providing service. They need the staff for safety sometimes. And it's just extremely difficult to get the job done now.
Parks Department uses volunteers. Does the Library Department use volunteers?
We use lots and lots of volunteers, but we are not going to be, and you're not going to be happy because you get a lot more complaints having volunteers providing reference service. There's private, personal record information on people's library cards. You can't have volunteers do that.
Very well. I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, I know, but you'd have a lot more complaints with that level of volunteer work because it's just not appropriate. So the reason we have paid staff, dedicated staff, is to provide the service that we do. I mean, it's just extremely horrible. The complaints you're getting are all accurate and true. It's just miserable now. It's miserable from our side of it. It's miserable for the public.
Public side. Thank you.
I'm Verdell Flores, half-time adult librarian with the City of LA and Vice President of the Librarians Guild. I work in one of the busiest branches in the western area. And these last 2 weeks, it has been a full-time librarian and myself operating the library for the 37 and a half hours we've been open to the public. We close the door and we stand outside the door and try and catch our breath before we can get in our car and drive away. You cannot expect 2 people to work 6 days and trying to keep the library open. We need the staff. And having a volunteer there in some of our cases, we have volunteers helping our children learn to read. We have volunteers helping our adults learn to read. We have volunteers helping patrons who aren't sure how to print. They aren't sure how to get to Google from our library's homepage. They're not sure how to use a copy machine. Those are all things we as librarians have to do. The volunteers do that for us. Our teen volunteers are a great asset since we're down to one full-time person who can put books back on the shelf. If you can't find a book on the shelf, if it's been shelved incorrectly, it's lost because you cannot take your time and go through 10 shelves looking for a book. So we have to train our teen volunteers to do that, and many of them are very good. But every now and then, you're searching for something else and you find a book that's out of order, a book that's been made lost. So we need the staff in order to even think about opening the library for an extra day. And I did in my own little scratches here, if we did 6 days at 6 hours, I'm thinking of the people who would never be able to come into the library. If we closed at 4 and opened at 10.
Keep talking.
If we closed at 4 and opened at 10, if we didn't open till 12, all of the parents who drop their kids off at school and come into the library to read the paper or to get the next bestseller because they've got a few hours before they have to pick up their child, or they're coming to our quilting class. There's a lot of people who would be more negatively impacted with this kind of schedule, and we already know the numbers who are negatively impacted when we went to 5 days.
I think it's very incumbent on the council to fully understand this. I'm going to continue this particular matter because I want to ask the CAO to look at that and also personnel department to look at that and tell us how many additional staff they would need to identify to serve the purpose. So if we could continue this matter, because I want to see what the positive side about this suggestion would be in the event we're not able to get a increased revenue source. Where do we fill the gap and et cetera? So if we could do that, we're going to order this continued for 30 days. I thank each and every one of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay, the next item we have, Mr. Clerk.
Item number 13 is a motion by Council Members Labange and Garcia relative to directing the Departments of Aging, Recreation and Parks, Disability, Library, Los Angeles Zoo, and El Pueblo de Los Angeles to report with a year-to-date status report and update on budget-related issues, including specific program, budget reduction, and proposed mitigating measures.
Okay, can I ask Mr. Clerk, does any departments have a written report ready? No, one department. Personnel, you go first. Come on up here. Disability? Thank you. Just present that to the clerk. Thank you. A nice looking scarf you got.
Thank you. Tony Abraham with the Department on Disability. I'll make this brief as possible. Your motion had requested that departments report with a year-to-date status report, especially in response to the CAO's report of October the 15th showing budget shortfalls. The Department of Disability had reported a shortfall of approximately $46,000. The request had been made that the department attempt to identify either fundings from the contractual services or the 6010 report. We are examining the contractual services 3040 report accounts as well as the 6010 office and admin. At this time, we are fully committed. We have identified all our expenses over the last 2 years, and we are fully committed in those particular accounts right now. We'll continue to examine them, but we're hard-pressed, especially when it comes to providing sign languages services. We have that at $130,000 a year. Captioning services, that's $60,000. And the ADA assistance program, that is where an assistant, we have 2 of them at this point, provide service to a city employee. So we only have in our contractual services account $253,000. So we are very taxed at this moment.
We're going to look at this, and I'm going to share with my colleagues. We're going to continue this item, but I appreciate your report right now. I want to call on public comment, the cards that have been filled out. Stephanie Taylor, Brent Whittlesey, excuse me, Edward Flores, Michael Hudson Medina, and Jack Foley. Because council starts shortly, I'm going to give you 1 minute. If you need more than 1 minute, go from there. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Stephanie Taylor from the Green LA Coalition, Verde Coalition. I'll just keep it really brief since we didn't hear the report, and just thank you for holding these hearings, and we're very interested in continuing the dialogue with the city in terms of how we can increase funding for parks and make sure that we prioritize the parks in the most park-poor areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's nice to see you, Councilman Labange. I'm the soccer guy from Los Feliz, as you
Yes.
recall, and I just wanted to tell you that in the last year, Rec and Parks has been doing a very good job with the permitting process for fields. They're very responsive. They seem to have reorganized their operations a little bit, and I just wanted to give you a little good news about that. It's going smoothly.
Thank you very much. I think that's a good point. I think that's one thing that the general manager and his team spoke of, that in areas where they could continue service with partners, whether it's ASYO or someone else, that's an achieved goal to make it easier for them to use facilities. Thank you.
Yes, Michael Hudson Medina. I have a written proposal. May I give it to the clerk?
Sure, Lisa will get it for you. You can give your comments now.
Yes. Well, yesterday in the LA Times, I read about the proposed Cyrus the Great monument to be erected in, that's going up to this committee. And so Christopher Knight, the art critic for the LA Times, he wrote a very good article highlighting our neglected Beethoven statue in the park. And I have a proposal for you that because...
At Pershing Square?
Yes.
Right.
I run a arts organization called Latino Arts LA that teaches young kids the importance of the arts, and we teach the kids Beethoven, and so Beethoven needs to be brought back to the light, and also tying the history, because I know Councilman LeBlanc, you love Los Angeles history, and that we can highlight the history of the LA Philharmonic Hall that was across the street, the Philharmonic Auditorium at the same time. So anyway, I just wanted to bring this forward.
You meet with me afterwards. I want to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Good morning, Councilman. My name is Edward Flores. I'm an Olvera Street merchant, and I thought I was going to be commenting after the status report. However, us merchants are desirous that it be successful, the management structure there in administering to Olvera Street and managing it. And with that, we believe that there's a method for being a little more efficient with the revenue and the personnel there. We realize that they're going to realize more revenue generating when the leases get signed, foreseeably in the near future. But we thought there would also be some methods for generating additional revenue, such as creating perhaps an online access to the thousands of photographs that Old Pueblo has the rights to right now. We thought that they could generate more revenue. Also, perhaps by automating the parking lots there, some additional revenue could also be generated. Because ultimately, the administration is not only there to serve the city and the visitors, but also the merchants as well. So we hope that we could get a little more service for the additional revenue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Foley.
Jack Foley, People for Parks. I'm happy to announce that we received a grant with the Verde Coalition to study revenue for the city recreation and parks. So that's good news. We have funding for that study. Secondly, on the reorganization, we'd like to see more attention to equity services, make sure that as the parks cut, that they're fair to the poor communities. I'd like to see some classification like the old urban impact park status that they had. And the third point is that on the partnership policy, I agree that the partnership policy is very good for established groups, but we're quite critical of how it would apply to poor communities. It has to be much simpler, clearer. County does 2-page, 36-hour turnaround. The city's a 17-page, all kinds of legal requirements and a 45-day turnaround. So we'd like to see a component of programs for neighborhoods.
Could you provide me with a county document and then the city document?
Oh, yes, I will.
And then write the number of days that are on there?
Yes, I'll provide it.
Good. To members of the public, my colleagues weren't able to join today, but this is a very important issue of these departments, where they are kind of in mid-fiscal year. We're going to continue this discussion and ask for full reports on a very specific item where the top items are right on top of the agenda, so we could take it first up at this time. Our council does meet at 10, and I have to get to the council downstairs. Some of you from People for Parks, I do want to talk with you about your objectives, so you can continue the conversation. If anyone wants to ask me any questions, come to council. I'm on the right side, and I'll be able to ask any questions. But Madam City Attorney, we don't have anything else before us at this time. So I just want to thank everybody's participation, but I do want to discuss Beethoven and at Parks and the weather. So we're adjourning this meeting. Thank you very much. Okay. This is this.